I only hope he's TARDIS trained.
I allowed K9 to foul the pavement.
God, somebody slipped on the ball bearings.
Contact has been made. I will listen to episode 263 of an Unearthly Podcast, streaming live on the 11th of July, 2018, and featuring The Invisible Enemy, written by Bob Baker and Dave Martin, and starring Tom Baker as the Doctor, Louise Jameson as Leela, and introducing John Leeson as the voice of K9. My name is Randy Ronson McCulloch, and I will be your host for this evening, and with me is our technical director, Mad Matt Winchell.
I survived by Ramune alone.
Bill Sylvia, the Man in Black.
Affirmative.
And Tim, the Enchanter Sheridan.
Everything's better with feathers.
Aaron Romeo Burke is taking the week off because she has to prep for a new job she is getting, and it's basically wearing her ragged. And I have no idea where Thomas is. Anybody heard from Thomas?
Nope.
I've not heard from Thomas.
I remember him saying something, but I don't remember what it was. Unless I think as of 24 hours ago, I don't think he had watched it yet, but I was under the impression he was still planning to.
Yeah, he said
he
last
was supposed
night.
to, yeah. Yeah, he said he did last night and gave an idea.
I'm wondering if he's just overslept.
Possibly.
Anyway.
Overslept or lost
time
track of time.
zones.
Either way, at the moment, we are 2 down tonight, but, that's fine. We'll deal. We move on. The
One of
show
them may
must
pop
go
in.
on. It didn't last week because way too many of us couldn't have been heard over the sound of explosions.
Pops and bangs
Also,
and
2 of
booms.
us would have been pretty much gone the entire night anyway, so...
Oh, really?
Yeah, you and Aaron. I would assume you
Yeah.
guys would be gone pretty much the entire time.
Yeah, well, yeah, we went to go see a movie, which I will talk about later.
And it worked out because a bunch of people requested the day off at my job, so I was working and would have showed up after the news.
Okay, so basically there would have been 4 out of the 6 of us that would have been completely unable to do this. So, yeah, at that point, the show gets canceled.
Yep.
Anyway,
Damn boom
but
booms.
that was last week. Now it's this week. On tonight's show, we have the news, and we actually have a fair amount of news, as well as birthdays, of course. Geek Talk, both Bill and I have some stuff we want to talk about. I really have no rant this week, but Bill does have a review of Shame for the Massacre, which we did, I think, a couple of months back. We don't have any comments. Then I will do the episode summary this week. And then the episode review, our final thoughts, and our ratings.
Sweet.
So let's kick it off with the birthday. And before we start that, I do have an announcement and an apology. A month ago, when we were doing the Green Death, I announced the birthdays of David Prowse and Jean Marsh. This was an error. Apparently, when I was filling in all the names and dates for birthdays, I misclicked on the website I use that has a list of birthdays affiliated with Doctor Who. The website can be a bit tetchy sometimes, and I think I clicked July instead of June. So those 2 birthdays, David Prowse and Jean Marsh, actually were on the 1st of July and should have been announced tonight. But since we've already announced them a month ago, I'm not going into them again. I'm pretty sure David Prowse wouldn't remember anyway.
Sadly, yes, he does seem to have issues coming and going.
Yep.
Harsh.
Who we did miss, however, was Jonathan Pryce, the guy that played the Master in Curse of Fatal Death. He turned 71 on June 1st, and I do apologize for that. Happy birthday belated. I am not perfect, people. I can make mistakes. It's rare, I know it's only
Yes.
once in a blue moon, but I can make an error, and when it does, I own up to it, so I apologize. All right, so moving on to the rest of the birthdays. On the 28th of June, we celebrate the birthday of Lala Ward, who played, of course, the second incarnation of Romana from 1979 to 1981. She turned 67. Then it is the birthday of Maureen O'Brien, I believe the following day. And I screwed up here again. I'm just absolutely rolling failure here. And she turned 75 on the 29th of June. She played Vicky back in 1965. Then would come the July 1st birthdays, which we're skipping. And then we move on to the 7th of July, which the first birthday is very honorary, but I'm only including him because of his massive popularity, and that's Ringo Starr, who played himself in a brief clip shown in The Chase, turned 78. Then,
Wasn't
of
he
course,
in some musical combo?
yes, he was a member of the Beatles.
Oh, I know. I'm joking.
I know. I just decided not to try to run with that because, yeah. Also, on the 7th of July is the birthday of John Pertwee, the third Doctor from 1970 to 75, who would have been 99, but died in 1996 at 76. Jeez.
We could also go with Ringo as having been mentioned in 42.
Was
When
he?
they asked about they asked about the Beatle.
Okay, so also on the 10th of July is the birthday of John Sim, who played the Master in 2007 to 2009, and again in 2017, turned 48. And then also on the same day is Jackie Lane, who played Dorothy, or Dorothea Chaplet, in 1966, who turned 77. So there we go. Happy birthday to Lala, Maureen, David, Joan, Ringo, John, and Jackie.
Yep.
John, yeah.
When you return.
John.
So that's all the birthdays for the last 2 weeks, and we do have one Lost Story announcement.
Yep.
Tim?
Yep, but an Unearthly Podcast is sad to announce the death of Helen Griffin at the age of 59. She played Mrs. Moore in the 2006 two-parter Rise of the Cybermen / Age of Steel. She was born in South Wales. Griffin was originally a psychiatric nurse until 1986, when she switched over to being an actress. Her most famous role was the masseuse Lynette in the 1997 British dark crime comedy drama Twin Town, which was filmed and set in Swansea. According to her agent, Helen Griffin died peacefully on Friday night, surrounded by her loved ones.
And that's usually, agent talk or newspaper talk for she had a disease. And that because at 59, you do not die of natural causes.
Yeah, she was obviously ill and the family was there.
Yeah, which means they knew about it. So it might have been cancer, it might have been heart failure, we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, judging by when she started acting, cancer is probably a possibility, but
Most
they
likely.
haven't officially stated her cause of death. They've been keeping it private.
Also, just a quick side note, she won a BAFTA for a script that she wrote herself and then acted it as a small role in the movie.
Mm-hmm. You all remember who this is, right? The white-haired lady?
Yeah.
The one that's the famous scene with the doctor talking about hot dogs?
Oh.
The Cybermen of food, but boy, is it tasty. Yeah. I'm actually kind of sad about that. I really liked her.
Mm-hmm. For a small bit that I got to see her.
Yep. Anyway, to Series 11 news.
Yeah,
Bill?
so for months now, there had been no word from the BBC as to whether or not there would be a Christmas special, leading some news outlets to believe or report that there was not going to be one in 2018. However, we finally have the first positive news on this in this direction. An entry in the online CV of an editor on the program, Adele McDonald, or Adel McDonald, I'm not sure which.
I'm not sure either.
Indicates he will be working on a Christmas special to be directed by Wayne Yip. Yip is a New Who alum, previously directing the episodes The Lie of the Land and Empress of Mars last season. It's not official, it's not definitive, but as far as unofficial news goes, this is pretty much top grade.
Yeah, but it's good. It's good enough not to be considered a rumor, but it's not like the BBC has gone out and said, "Yes, we're having a Christmas special." They'll probably do that next week.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Also,
So
his episodes are apparently kind of 50-50.
yeah, well, Lie of the Land was part of a trilogy that was already doomed.
Yeah. But his solo one was the last Ice Warriors story, which I remember being pretty good. So
it was not the greatest, but not the worst.
mm-hmm.
Anyway, moving on to merchandise. In preparation for San Diego ComicCon next week, 5 different figurines of the 13th Doctor have been previewed. 2 of them are done by Titan Merchandise, 2 of them by Funko in its Pop and Rock Candy series, and 1 by Character Options. I'm pretty sure Matt's pulling up those images now.
Mm-hmm.
Since there's no more than 2 of each, I'm guessing they're the outfits we've already seen.
They're all in the same
They're all
outfit.
the same outfit.
Oh, they're all the same outfit, so it's not even. It's
just
the
different stylizations of the character.
Gotcha.
I mean, the Titan ones.
One of them is kind of the Lego-esque one, and the other one's kind of almost like a pop figure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of which has a more realistic face, and one has a more anime-esque face.
Then you got the actual pop figure, and then the other one.
Yeah, then you have the pop figure, which, by the way, those things kind of... I mean, Aaron has a few of these, and they kind of creep me out sometimes.
I have a He-Man one. It's perfectly fine.
They all have the exact same head.
It's the whole eye pupil, I think.
No, it's the square... It's the way oversized square head.
Oh, come on. Tommy Pickles isn't that creepy.
And then they also, for their Rock Candy one, I mean, that's uber anime style there, and makes her look about 12.
Yeah, that's like a 3D anime style, and it makes her look a lot younger than she is. But anyway.
Mm-hmm. Then skip the next image because I'll get back to that. And then you have at the very bottom of this the Character Options action figure that's coming out.
Wow.
And is it just me, or did they take Rose Tyler's head and put it on this action figure?
Not Rose Tyler per se. I will say though that it does remind me of Captain Scarlet. It reminds me of the British Captain Scarlet figures.
Well, it's probably done by the same company.
Possibly, or whoever picked up the rights to make them.
That way is pointing out to me that the eyebrows in these figures are all different, which makes me want to go back to the official art and see what color her eyebrows are actually going to be.
God damn it, Bill.
Some of them have dark eyebrows, some of them have blonde eyebrows.
And he's going to go do it too, you know that.
Well, okay, here's the problem.
It's just really weird.
I'm pretty sure that Jodie Whittaker's 13th Doctor is actually a bottle blonde. Because she has light hair with dark roots. And
True.
That's usually the sign of bleached hair. So it really depends on if they're also touching up her eyebrows or not. I don't know if they're planning on mentioning this in the show or if they're going to pretend like she's full-on blonde.
In the official art, she has dark eyebrows.
So, yeah.
So they didn't even dye her eyebrows.
Which I think that's normally the case, because a lot of characters I can think of with light hair tend to have dark eyebrows. It's just accepted on television.
All right, so why this got tagged in with the action figures, I don't know, but the clothing manufacturer Her Universe is also debuting the 13th Doctor wear. They're basically doing their version of the 13th Doctor's outfit. The rainbow striped coat, the rainbow striped top, the long coat, and the blue trousers are all coming out, and will be in Hot Topic, which
Go figure.
Yeah.
Go figure. Hot Topic has been less what it used to be, and just basically anything geek that they can slap a price tag on.
Yeah, it's most of the geek merchandise I end up buying ends up being sold through Hot Topic, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah, it just makes me.
I both miss it and kind of don't at the same time these days.
For me, it was, the Hot Topic was the place that people went to get stuff that were, fake geeks.
Not really.
Hipsters.
Hmm.
But
So I'm a hipster? I'll admit that the last thing
I'm
I
not-
got from them was a black Spider-Man hoodie, but still.
Yeah.
And God, now imagine how long ago that was, because that was when that movie came out.
Anyway, that's pretty much what we had for this particular article. Moving on, we have a little bit of event news.
Yep.
Tim?
If you are lucky enough to be heading to this year's ComicCon International in San Diego next week and are planning to be at the Doctor Who panel, be warned. Instead of on Saturday, like it has been in previous years, it will be on Thursday, 19th of July, at 11:45 a.m. This does mean that the related news will be out there in just a little over a week, and so those of us not attending can hold tight.
Yep. So we won't have that news for the podcast next week, but by the time we get to it the week after, it'll already be slightly old news.
Mhm.
I hate it when they do that. Just hate it.
But the fact that they're doing it on Thursday, to me, implies that there's not going to be much.
That there's what?
Implies that there's not going to be much, at least compared to a Saturday panel.
It could just be that there wasn't room on Saturday, and they got their stuff in late. I don't know.
Yeah, it's possible. It makes it seem like there's not as much reason to be hyped for it.
Well, we know that everybody's going to be there. Chibnall, Whitaker, all the companions, they're all going to be there. So they are still debuting for their first public appearance at this. We're still hoping they have some announcement. I mean, look at E3. Technically speaking, the Fallout panel was before the start of E3, and it was still the biggest thing to hit E3. Or the Bethesda panel, I should say. So, can't really tell. It could be that it's just the fact that ComicCon has gotten too big. That you're not going to be able to fit everything you want on a Saturday anymore.
Very probable.
It has become the con for television and movie media stuff.
Right.
So everybody wants those Saturday slots, and not everybody can get them. So they just maybe decided to rotate Doctor Who out. Who knows?
Or like we said, they got it in late.
Yep. Okay, so moving on to that, to our media release news, and we have a bit of video news.
All right, so the Doctor Who Season 12 Blu-ray was released last week in the UK and very nearly hit #1 in the sales charts, topped only by the release of Marvel's Black Panther, which had also topped the charts last week.
In the previous week.
Previous week. Okay,
yeah.
so which had also topped the charts in the previous week.
Yep, so basically this was this chart was released this week for last week's showing, but it was also topping the charts in last week's chart for the week before. I know it gets confusing, but
wording.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to write these up at fast and accurate. So
we don't rehearse this.
No, we don't.
Learn our lines phonetically.
It replaced The Shape of Water, which dropped to #4. Also new that week was Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 4, which came in at #5. Warner's Game Night at #7. Or that's Warner's Game Night.
Warner Brothers Game Night, yeah.
Universal's Lady Bird at #9, and Studio Canal's You Were Never Really Here at #10.
We'll see if this little trend keeps up and it still maintains the charts of the UK. By the way, of course, there's no news about US charts, but I doubt it would be in the top 10 there because US is a lot larger market.
True, but if there's word about a Tom Baker box set being out in the United States,
you got to remember,
there's some old fans that'll just squee and go running.
It's still a drop in the bucket compared to the US market. Remember the fact that the UK is about the size of Illinois.
I also think even though there's a lot of Fourth Doctor fans, I still think in the United States, David Tennant and Matt Smith have much larger followings than Tom Baker.
New Who have a lot larger followings than classic.
In Britain, that's probably not the case, but in the US, I'm very certain it probably is.
Mm-hmm. The people that like classic Q in the US are still more eclectic, while New Who has hit mainstream culture that if you ask a person on the street, they now know what Doctor Who is, as opposed to, 20 years ago when they would be like, what? It does.
If you walked into a random hot topic, to continue our conversation from before, and asked a person if they knew David Tennant versus if they knew Tom Baker, most people would not know Tom Baker.
Not too sure that's the best place to do it. I would have said a Denny's.
I mean, I don't know if Hot Topic still has physical locations, but
apparently there's one in a mall somewhere around here. Anyway, we're harping on this. Moving on. After taking a summer vacation, of which we've had no news from them for 2 months now, Candy Jar Books has announced the release of another free online book, Peace of Mind. In it, the Brigadier is sent to a place called Sanctuary to mentally convalesce after issues. However, things are not all what they seem. Remember, this is a free book, so it's available only from the Candy Jar Books website.
The Doctor finally blew the Brigadier's mind.
Actually, I think it's a very messy breakup.
Yeah.
It's relationship issues.
Brigadier, one day there will be peanut butter and jelly in the same jar.
No.
I love that stuff. I loved that stuff as a kid. It's not quite as good as actually using peanut butter and jelly separately, but it was decent enough. Anyway, moving from there on to our Big Finish news. Still proceeding along at a good clip.
Take a deep breath, Tim.
Yeah.
Okay. Out now. Released last week was Short Trips, The Siege of Big Ben, featuring Camille Coterie as Jackie Tyler, taking place on Pete's World, with the Meta-Crisis Doctor sometime after the events of Journey's End.
I would have had a summary, but their summary basically just said what I said.
Short Trips, The Siege of Big Ben is available from the Big Finish website for £2.99 download only! Out yesterday is The Eighth Doctor, The Time War 2, featuring Eighth Doctor Paul McGann and Rocky Thakrar as Bliss. In it, things get more dangerous as the war ramps up. Jacqueline Pierce returns as Cardinal Alistra, the War Master of Gallifrey, as the Doctor and Bliss try desperately not to be killed by one side or the other. Episodes include The Lords of Terror by Jonathan Morris, Planet of the Ogrons by Guy Adams, and The Garden of Death by Guy Adams, Jonah by Timothy X. Atack. The Eighth Doctor, The Time War 2, is available now for £23 CD, £20 download.
All
Upcoming releases. Or do we want to talk about anything that's out now?
No, I actually have forgotten to listen to the trailers for these. So I can't tell you much about them.
New trailers are out for the first 2 volumes of the upcoming Class audio series. Episodes include Volume 1, Gifted by Roy Gill, Life Experience by Jenny T. Colgan, Tell Me You Love Me by Scott Handcock. Volume 2, Everyone Loves Reagan by Tim Foley, Now You Know by Tim Lang, and In Remembrance by Guy Adams, featuring Sophie Aldred as Ace. The first 2 volumes of Class are available for pre-order now from the Big Finish website for £20 each CD, £15 each download.
Yeah, In Remembrance features both Sophie Aldred as Ace and the Daleks, both in...
As themselves.
As themselves, yes. Both in kind of a sequel to Remembrance of the Daleks, in a way.
I don't think was a D in Scott's surname, unless this is different than I've seen. No, there is a D, so at least according to that article, so...
Yeah, I was
very
copying...
unfortunate name. Okay.
Moving on. Unit returns for its 7th series in Unit, Revisitations. Following on the steps of Unit Cyber Reality, the Unit team faces off against the Wern, indeed with the return of Chin Lee, the Mind of Evil. Episodes
from the Mind of Evil, yeah.
From the Mind of Evil. Hosts of the Weirn by Chris Chapman, Breach of Trust by David K. Barnes, and Open the Box by Roy Gill. Unit Revisitations is available for pre-order from Big Finish for £23 CD, £20 download. We also have Diary of Riversong River 4. Coming in September is the Diary of Riversong Series 4. In it, River has to deal with the Discordia, pirates that use time travel to ensure victory. And also a factor is the Fourth Doctor. Episodes include Time in a Bottle by Emma Reeves and Matt Fitton, Kings of Infinite Space by Donald McCleary, Whodunit by Matt Fitton, Someone I Once Knew by John Dorney. The Diary of Riversong Series 4 is available for pre-order now from Big Finish for £23 CD, £20 download. David Bradley returns next January in The First Doctor Adventures Volume 3. With him is Claudia Grant as Susan Foreman, Jamie Glover as Ian Chesterton, and Gemma Powell as Barbara Wright. And also playing the mysterious woman is Carol Ann Ford. Episodes include The Phoenicians by Mark Platt, TikTok World by Guy Adams. The First Doctor Adventures Volume 3 is available for pre-order now from the Big Finish website for £23 CD, £20 download.
Now, I am wondering if this is actually happening where they, like, the TARDIS lands, like, sometime, like, X amount of time after the events of Dalek invasion of Earth. So the mysterious woman is Susan, but she can't reveal herself to be Susan for reasons.
That would be very interesting.
Especially since there's apparently the person already playing the younger Susan with him.
The only mention that is the title makes it seem like there's a historical and an off-world. Neither one of them really sound like their future.
Yeah. Well, we don't know. TikTok World could be future, and I suspect that's where
could be.
Carol Ann Ford shows up.
Could be.
And yeah, the Phoenician sounds historical. It has that historical ring to it. The Romans,
the Aztecs.
Yeah, the Aztecs, the Phoenicians. Yeah, it fits. But yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say about that. We have one more news article.
Right. We mentioned 2 weeks ago that the BBC's legal team shut down the leak that occurred with episode 1. Well, now the legal team is taking full action. The BBC has filed a subpoena in California to force mobile company Tapatalk to release records so the BBC can identify the source of this leak and plug it permanently. By permanently, we mean fire, not kill, we hope. A spokesman for the Beeb said, "We take theft and illegal distribution of our content extremely seriously. We will strive to protect our program makers, audiences, and license fee payers from any breaches of security, ensuring Doctor Who fans enjoy the final and fully completed version of the episode when it premieres. More as this story developed. I'm not actually sure of the past precedent for releasing those sort of records. I know there was a bit of a thing between Apple refusing to unlock some phones for search, but this is kind of a different thing, so I'm not actually sure what the precedent for this one is.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, but apparently they're going to try it. They've lawyered up and fired off the subpoena, so
right.
We'll see if this actually gets them to work or not, because I mean, the fact that this is leaking means that it's got to be the source is a BBC employee. And
BBC
we know
or an outside contractor for a translation and dubbing company,
which is what happened in Florida. A few years ago, and that company got fired.
So this could have been the company that's doing the translations now, and they might be getting someone fired.
That's what happened with Deep Breath.
Yep. And the 5 scripts that got released.
Oh yeah, I forgot about those.
Yeah, I know they were particularly pissed because this time the music that was used in there was temporary music and everything. So they're not very happy with what was there. The special effects weren't finished, that kind of stuff.
You saying that reminds me of the temporary music that I really wished had made it into the final cut of Deep Breath. But it did not.
I remember when Rose got leaked.
Oh.
back then, and they released it, and it had the old like Tom Baker music.
Hmm.
It was the new Who opening, but they had done it to the Tom Baker music, and I was just like, wow, cool. And it was actually a better copy than the released version, because the released version actually had those 5 seconds of freaking Graham Norton that got cut into a scene.
Wait,
All
the
right.
official DVD did?
No, the original air release.
Oh, okay.
When they originally broadcast it, somebody flipped a wrong switch at the BBC, and like 5 seconds of Graham Norton can be heard in the scene where Rose is creeping around the basement of the store.
I knew that happened in the air. Just the way you said release made me think that it happened in the DVD. Okay.
No. Well, mind you, that master copy was the one that got distroed first by the pirating community. For those of us here in the United States who couldn't officially watch it for another freaking 18 months. Fuck you, Sci-Fi Channel. And that was reminding me how in the old days, it would be 2 to 3 years before we would see that kind of stuff locally. But, back then they had an excuse. Everything was on videotape, and yet actually you needed a professional company to convert it from NTSC to PAL back in the 80s, and that gave the BBC full control over when they could release stuff internationally. Nowadays, no, they don't have that. First of all, even before they went digital, converting to NTSC to PAL is just a click of a button on a PC these days. And now with everything gone fully digital and high def, don't even need that. Everybody's using the same format. So that's one of the reasons I'm pretty sure that televisions are doing a lot of the simul airing now. It's because they know if they don't, someone else will just immediately pop it on the internet.
Right.
Anyway.
Which is why we were so confounded with Class until we realized it wasn't all that great.
Yeah, I'm still kind of curious as to how the Class audios are going to work. I need to listen to those trailers, but I will do that later. I got distracted by dinner. Sorry. Had to eat. All right, so we have a review of Shame tonight.
Shame.
Bill has finally managed to watch a back episode, and so he watched The Massacre. When did we do The Massacre? Because I need to find that. That was
one of the
April.
weeks where I was writing a paper.
Yep. It was back on the 18th of April. So this has been April to May to June.
July.
It's been basically about 2.5 months.
Oh, shame.
And he's got 6 more to do.
Damn.
I actually was putting off this one because I thought it would be very hard to multitask while doing it. I didn't realize that there was so little action and that it was effectively an audio. Like I don't think I read the captions more than once because there wasn't any need to.
Shame.
I was a little surprised with this one because the way I had heard people talk about it in other places made it seem like William Hartnell was much more present than he was. And also they had kind of played up Dodo being related to, I believe her name was Anne, which made me think they were the same actor. But she wasn't, which Randy had informed me of a week or two ago. Which made me realize that the fact that they were related was probably something that was tacked onto the script at the last second after they cast the new companion, rather than something that was actually intended in the story. I liked the episode. I would say my favorite scene was the Night of the Doctor speech at the end. Good wrap up for the first Doctor era to that point. What I disliked was mainly that the ending seemed kind of rushed, like they weren't sure how to deal with that whole like fixed moment versus not change the timeline thing, and they were just like, well, get them out of there and then talk about it a bit instead of actually doing a thing. So there was a lot of tell don't show. At least that's what it came across in the Telesnap version. If we ever find the real thing, we need to see more. I think I'm going to say 4 out of 5.
Oh.
Oh.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's about that's with our high ranking. That's a Tim grade score for that,
Oh.
and that will actually put it up 2 points on there from a 3.1 to a 3.3 average.
Hmm.
Yeah, I had to deduct for it being a
Oh,
telesnap
yeah,
regardless
of
of
course.
actions and stuff. So
I forgot. Telesnaps are always going to be lower than mine because you always rate telesnap significantly lower than I do.
I drop at least a point deduction base, and I gave this one I was the lowbie on that one. I gave it a 2.5
Mm-hmm.
because there was some stuff in there that really bothered me.
Either bothered Randy or bored him to tears. Either way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to listen to the Massacre podcast sometime within the next week now that I've actually given my rating, because I'm trying not to spoil myself on your ratings before I give mine.
Okay.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right, that makes sense. You know what you might want to do is basically rewatch and catch up, and then just see if you can spam listen to the podcasts. Not
Mhm.
like one in a row, but like one a day or something.
Right.
Just saying. All right. So from there, we go forward to our Geek Talk. And Bill and I both have some stuff we've been watching on streaming, both of which on Netflix.
Yep.
So I caught Luke Cage season 2. I spent the weekend basically watching that. And it's pretty good. I think you already talked about this previously, didn't you, Bill?
Yeah, last podcast I gave a spoiler-free description of it.
And I quite enjoyed this one. I remember the original Luke Cage. First of all, I love the freaking theme to Luke Cage. Just saying, it is such a flashback to '70s blaxploitation movies. You just get that feel. Only way it would have been a little more of some of the other stuff. I was going to say the only way it could feel more of that feel is if Isaac Hayes sung it. But
I'm surprised you say 70s, because when I think the Luke Cage soundtrack is very much 90s hip hop.
oh, it's very much 90s hip hop, but that opening theme has that kind of that 70s kind of a revamped 70s feel.
Okay.
But no, the rest of the soundtrack is mostly 90s.
Yeah, definitely.
In particular, this one, because they're dealing with a Jamaican gang, there's a lot of reggae music. I actually like reggae music.
Reggae can be good.
Yeah,
There's a lot of Bob Marley.
Exactly.
Yep. There's one particular scene. I think watching the first 2-3 episodes, there were like 5 reggae tunes in there, and 2 of them were like my favorite reggae tracks. There's a scene where the bad guy is like practicing moves. I'm not going to say anything more about it, spoilers, but the song he's playing is one of my favorite Marley songs. I'm going to put on an iron shirt and set the devil out of earth. I'm like, wow, okay, I know this song.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting here jamming on the couch while this scene's going on.
Yeah, even I didn't know that song actually.
Yeah, I'm just like, wow.
I guess the one question I'd have about Luke Cage season 2 is, does it have the same problem the first one did, where it's like got a great first half and then just kind of falls off a bit as it goes on, or is it?
Nope.
Oh, thank God.
It pretty much is balls to the wall the entire bit.
So
There's points where the action lulls for like maybe an episode, but then picks right back up again.
So the way I saw that was, and the conclusion I sort of drew from it was that season 1 had that issue because we went from a great antagonist to a kind of poor one, and that season 2 had a very steady antagonist that probably wasn't quite as high as the first one, but much better than the second one.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with that, Randy?
Yeah. Okay. So the first one you had.
Although I guess there's 2 antagonists, but it's stable.
Cottonmouth and Diamondback were the 2 villains in the first.
Yeah.
And here the villain throughout is called Bushmaster. Why all of Luke Cage's bad guys are named after snakes, I don't know.
Well, I think actually it's because he was like a 70s blaxploitation comic, to be honest. So
Mhm.
it
But-
wouldn't surprise me that they went with themes for some of his villains for a while.
But instead of transmitting the thing, he's basically having to deal with kind of a three-way rumble between Bushmaster. Basically, Bushmaster has a feud with the villain survivor of Series 1, and Luke Cage is kind of having to fight one and then the other and then both. It's just, three-way while dealing with a lot of personal issues. And this is a slight spoiler, but not a horrible one, is the fact that his father comes looking for him, and he has some issues with his father for not believing that he is innocent. Yeah. So he has to deal with that. He has relationship issues. He has, image issues. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on.
Although, speaking of relationships, I think one character was greatly that appeared for 2 episodes was greatly improved over past Marvel shows, and they seem to be testing out the water to have him and Luke Cage work together a lot more.
Are you talking about Iron Fist? Because
Yeah.
that's not really a huge spoiler, considering they announced that.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah, that's old hat news now.
Yep. Yeah, they brought back Danny Rand for this. They've changed him a little bit. I mean, not really appearance-wise, but kind of personality. They've kind of toned him down a little bit.
He even lampshades.
Oh, thank God.
He even lampshades Iron Fist season 1. Danny Rand.
But there are a couple of things that are throwback for him trying to convince other people that yes, it was actually a dragon kind of bit. But there's some other stuff. There's a lot of lampshading in here. There's a scene because Luke Cage is a big name now. Everybody knows who Luke Cage is. So he has a friend that's basically selling Luke Cage merchandise, and basically he pulls out the yellow Power Man T-shirt. At one point, it's like, yeah, here we go, and it's like, yeah, there's a lot of really good scenes in this. There's a lot of really good acting.
Dude.
The guy that played Luke Cage's father was a really good addition. Unfortunately, that actor died right after they filmed this. So we won't
I
be seeing
think
him
it was
coming
in
back.
memory of him or whatever in the credits.
Yeah.
That sucks. We're not gonna
But
see
So
him for a while then.
basically,
Yeah.
if they bring up the character at all, it would in the next season it would
He'll
pretty
be
much just
dead.
be kind of a
He'll have died between seasons. Yeah.
Either he died between seasons, or they're gonna recast him completely again.
And
I think his arc is finished enough. It would be very unlikely for them to recast it, in my opinion.
yeah, they did enough with him. They came to terms. That's all I really need to say. But no, it's a great 13 episode watch. You at no part feel like you want to stop watching. In fact, I very nearly watched it in one sitting, except for the fact that I was falling asleep from sheer exhaustion at 4 a.m.
Do you think that the character that they sort of gradually introduce is going to be the season 3 antagonist?
I'm thinking possibly. I think I was thinking that by the end of it.
I know she's apparently a Luke Cage villain in the comics, so.
Oh, then she probably will be.
Probably will be then.
She has enough resentment by the end of it. I'm pretty sure that she'll come back. There's a lot. There's a lot of people, a lot of characters that die, and a lot of characters that not. Bushmaster is a particularly lethal dude, and there is one episode which is not for the squeamish, and that is they visibly watch as somebody gets dipped in rum and lit on fire. And I'm watching that the first time going, ugh. And I'm watching that the second time because Aaron then proceeded to watch it after I watched it. And I'm like, you better have been done eating. But other than that, there's a lot of general violence. A lot of people get shot. A lot of people get that. Luke Cage gets shot a lot, but not that it does anything.
If Luke Cage wasn't being shot, he really wouldn't be living up to the potential of the character.
It's like every time he comes up against the villain, the first thing he does is pull out a handful of a gun and just proceed to shoot a full clip into it. And I'm like, haven't you figured it out now? I think at one point he says, God, every time they just have to try it out.
That reminds me. They just don't stop shooting.
Okay, and Bill, moving on because we are starting to get down in time.
So Voltron Season 6 came out last month now. And I caught that shortly after our last podcast. Like Season 4 and 5, it was a short season. I forget how many episodes, probably like 6.
6 is what they tend to do, yeah.
Yeah. So this one features it does feature a major turn in the plot, which I'm not going to spoil, but there's twists and turns in the overall, but there's also stopped counting when I got engrossed in the season, or focused on a specific character and that character's growth. So I really enjoyed that, and it helped me, stay, more invested than I feel like I was with seasons 4 and 5. There was also an interesting episode that was mostly comedy, but I believe there was also some character and plot in that one as well. Say this was one of the better seasons, especially since they went to the short season format. It definitely, I don't know if it was my personal place or the quality of the episodes itself, that it kept my attention a lot better than seasons 4 and 5 did, but that could have just been my own mood. So I would have to rewatch the others to really tell.
Okay,
I would definitely say it was a good season.
Yeah, I haven't watched season 5 yet, so I'm probably going to do that over the weekend this weekend. Catch up on that.
Funny you bring up this show, by the way. Apparently, my nephew has been off and on watching this show.
Yeah.
He stopped watching. He stopped watching, like, I want to say about a half a year to a year ago, because apparently something spooked him. But all of a sudden, recently, in the last couple of months, he's been suddenly begging his mom and dad to watch on Netflix again.
Mm-hmm.
So it just took a bit. He needed to grow a little bit.
Right.
Possibly.
All right. So
speaking of spooky things, I'll just say one character is not who he seems to be, and that's revealed through an episode that's pretty interesting.
Okay. I will, like I said, I'll watch, and we can talk. We can discuss this like next week.
Right.
Like before or after the podcast. Anyway, I'll probably give a geek talk on it next week too. Anyway,
I need to really watch
when we were supposed to be streaming last week, instead Aaron and I were hiding out in a theater, and the movie that we decided to watch is Incredibles 2, which is, of course, the sequel after 12 years to the original Incredibles. And it is a really good movie. The focus is more on Elastigirl, the mother, rather than Mr. Incredible, the father.
Okay, that's what the trailer indicated, yeah.
Mr. Incredible is instead forced to be the live-at-home father, and has a lot of issues with it. Especially, first of all, this picks up the ball right where Incredibles 1 ended. You literally have them discussing the fight with the Mole Master.
Okay.
That showed up in the last 3 minutes of The Incredibles. Yeah, the Underminer. Thank you. I'm sorry. It's such a superhero villain.
He's such a classic Mole Man type. Yeah.
It's easier to forget what his name is, and you move on from there. But literally, all of this happens days after The Incredibles. And that's interesting, of course, because, of course, this is all being made 12 years later. And a couple of the actors involved, especially Craig T. Nelson, who does Mr. Incredible, has not aged well.
So how do you think they managed to handle that pickup right
the fact
after, even though there's been a big gap thing?
They managed to do it okay. The way they managed to do Craig D. Nelson, because his problem is he's gotten old and his voice has gotten wavery, is the fact that he's basically fighting exhaustion the entire movie. So that kind of makes it so that he's so that makes it more understandable. But if they're going to continue to do Incredibles movies, they're probably going to have to recast him.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say it, but he's
or they could just do like a time jump
if
to
they do
where he is old.
Yeah. But he is getting a bit long in the tooth. Helen Hunt, who does Elastigirl, managed to voice it just fine. The kids managed to sound just fine. Everybody else is just fine. The story is great. There is a thing. They do not advise this movie to be shown by people with problems with epilepsy. And that is because the main villain uses hypno screens which flash black and white. And normally this isn't that much of a problem, but there is one particular scene where they're fighting in a cage that has been decked out with all these black and white screens. So every scene has this black and white flashing going on.
Main villain's not a toad, is he?
No. He basically can hypnotize people using the screens to basically kind of puppet master them in a way.
Yeah, from what I've heard, they've started phasing in epilepsy safe versions, or they're about to start doing that, at least in the UK anyway. And apparently the epilepsy safe one is the only one the UK will be carrying.
Well, I don't know. We took our risks. We watched it. We didn't wind up drooling in our seats, so we're cool. It was quite an enjoyable movie. It still opens the door for more Incredibles, which I fucking love. Oh, and of course Samuel L. Jackson's freaking great as Frozone. He's not quite as good as he was in the original because he doesn't really have the "where's my super suit" moment. But he's still great, and
it's still Samuel L. Jackson, and he's always playing for fun.
One of the things that they did do in there is that Frozone, Elastigirl, and Mr. Incredible all apparently had theme music at some point. And Frozone's is pretty much like almost Shaft. It's great. Apparently, this was back in the day when they were heroes. Apparently they had songs made about them. And at the end of the movie, if you stay through the theater credits, there's no after credit scene, but you basically like the last 3 songs they play is each one's theme song.
Yeah.
And I mean, it comes up during the movie where one guy starts singing the theme, but he's just it's like somebody singing a theme he remembers. The end credits has the actual theme, and it's freaking awesome.
Gotcha.
So it's sort of like how Deadpool 2 has that. You actually hear what they play when that specific character shows up.
Something like that, yeah. Anyway, it's Incredibles 2, especially if you're an Incredibles fan, it is a must go see. It is a great Pixar movie.
Like
it's another
instant
Pixar classic.
Nope.
I'm thinking about buying the soundtrack, yeah.
Well, The Incredibles is only the best version of Fantastic Four made in the last decade, so...
In a way, yeah. I mean, Elastigirl basically has Mr. Fantastic's power.
Mr. Incredible's basically the Thing.
Yeah, well, he's Mr. Incredible's basically a brick. He's your super-powered brick.
Their daughter is basically the Invisible Girl, and while their son is the odd one out, he still has at least something.
He's basically
he's Flash instead of Human Torch.
Yeah. I was going to say that the baby is basically Franklin Richards at this point, right?
Kinda.
The baby, if you list the baby under powers, it just says all.
Which
I believe the technical name is Power Creep.
Which I think Franklin is in that category as well.
Yep.
Franklin, his power is a little different in the fact that I think he can basically just manipulate reality. Jack just basically
Just starts showing all these weird traits.
roll a dice, and that's what power he has. You know,
So he's super strong.
Yeah.
And I guess he does have Human Torch power, as we know from the
He
first
does. He
movie,
does have
so-
Human Torch powers. He can assume the demon form.
He's got the laser eyes.
He can apparently teleport into another dimension in this. Yes, he has the laser eyes. There's a whole list of powers he somehow has, and they go through a lot of them during this because Jack's budgeting powers actually becomes a major storyline point. Because of course, up until this point, at the beginning of the show, none of the main characters knows he has powers.
Okay.
And of course, in True Things, that they find out at the worst possible moment. Or at least Mr. Incredible does. Anyway,
I thought he was well aware that he has powers at the end of the last movie, but okay.
Nope. Remember, the entire thing, the Jack attacks, all happened to the babysitter.
Yeah, but he also turned into a monster right in front of his parents to scare the main villain.
Oh, that's up in the air, though. So, like, they don't know what's going on.
Oh. I had to rewatch, maybe.
Yeah, I kind of want to watch. This is a great one if you could get them both to watch them back to back.
Yeah, like, they actually did a re-release in the cinemas, like, a week before it came out.
Oh, man, I would have loved to
saw it.
I would have loved to have seen that. Anyway, yeah, definitely go watch it. That will do it for our Geek Talk. On to our episode summary, which I think I volunteered to do. Yep. So let me take a quick drink here. Kiwi strawberry. All right, you ready?
Yep.
All right, so what was it? Earth Titan space shuttle, or basically runs through an asteroid belt, makes a course correction, and accidentally runs into a virus in space, which infects first the ship and then the pilots. The ship bound to Titan lands on Titan. They all get out in spacesuits and kill almost everyone else on the station, save for the station supervisor, who sends out an SOS. The Doctor responds to this SOS, but before he gets to Titan, first the TARDIS and then he is likewise infected, but unlike the other guys, he merely goes unconscious briefly and maintains his own control rather than being under the control of the virus. He lands on the station, tries to deal with stuff, but is soon overwhelmed, and they are forced to take him to a medical facility called the Bael Foundation, where he is seen by a doctor called Professor Marius. At that point, the station supervisor, who has fallen under the control of the virus at this point, goes with and begins infecting members of the Bael Foundation to rebuild a power base there. Eventually, the Doctor regains consciousness and talks a bit with Professor Marinus and a bit with his robotic dog, K9. And they figure out that Leela is completely immune and is thus considered a reject by the virus. Must be something to do with her primitive nature or something. And they devise a way to try to clone the Doctor and then miniaturize him and Leela so that they can go within the Doctor's body to try to fight the virus from within. Meanwhile, Leela and K9 have to hold off the infected members of the Foundation, who first crash a shuttle into the station, isolating that deck, and then proceed to basically give them the ultimatum of hand over the Doctor or people start dying. They managed to hold him off for a few minutes while the Doctor and Leela clones walk around in the Doctor's head. Eventually, they come across the nucleus and try to deal with it. But unfortunately, the clones are basically destroyed in the process, and the virus escapes through the method that they were going to use through the tear duct. By this point, Professor Marinus has already been taken over by the virus. And he helps the nucleus grow to large proportions, basically looking like a gigantic crawdad.
Mm-hmm.
And they send it back to Titan so it can begin spawning. The doctor, having absorbed Leela's clone into his bloodstream, quickly recovers from the virus, isolates the factor in his own bloodstream that's changed, and begins mass producing a cure to cure the members of the Biel Foundation. They then work up a counter agent to take back to Titan to stop the spawning process. The doctor gets there a little late, and after a few shenanigans with K9 helping them, gets to the chamber that the spawning is, but unfortunately, the supervisor's there and destroys the antivirus. The doctor then goes to Plan B, which Leela mentioned earlier, which is blow them up. Considering it's basically a methane refinery, it's easy to blow up the entire shebang and get out quickly. The doctor first attributing to himself, but then later Leela does correct him, and they decide that's a good idea. Returning to the Biel Foundation, they discover that Marinus has been recalled to Earth and can't take K9 with him due to a weight restriction, so he offers them to have K9 go with them. While Leela is attempting to convince the doctor, K9 negates the point by simply rolling into the TARDIS. And the two take off on their way.
Just over 4 minutes.
Pretty basic plot, but it's doesn't feel like it when you're watching.
Right.
Okay, so what you liked about this episode, Serial, and Tim, you are first.
Oh boy. I really loved the visual effects, including the blue screen. I found it very entertaining when they were walking around the doctor's brain, especially those moments when I was asking, "What are you standing on?" There were moments when it seemed like they were just floating in midair. Yeah. But I also liked the lightning effects and the bubbly liquid filters with the brains and stuff. This was a visually stimulating episode, to say the least.
Okay. Not sure if you're being sarcastic or not. Can't tell.
I'm not.
All right. Matt.
Overall, good thing that hasn't already been taken yet. Outside of a little bit of the extra noise, I would have to say that K9 is an instant classic right out of the bag.
Yeah. You know, I was wondering while watching this if John Leeson realized when he was making this role that he would still be voicing this character 40 years later.
Affirmative. Wag stick of a tail.
Yeah. All right, Bill, how about you?
I liked the problem-solving aspect of it, how they had to keep shifting their goals to try and, keep ahead of the plot and figure out what needed to be done next. Instead of just a straightforward, beat the monster, base under siege. No, they actually have to come up with new methods constantly, and I like that.
Okay. Thomas?
I liked the foundation sets a lot. I'm not entirely sure why, but there's the first scene we get in there, I'm like, wow, this feels like a completely different thing. I don't know, in the outfits and stuff that they have in there and everything, it's just something about them, really stood out. And even the way it's kind of shot, that first scene felt like it was something... not in a bad way, but felt like it was something other than Doctor Who, just the way it was shot. It was just really, it was okay, yeah, we're definitely in a different place now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the beginning of it felt a little bit spaced 1999. Just with the model shots and stuff. But,
sorry,
please.
My pad fell. Okay.
Please don't rustle the mic.
But no, I definitely liked the middle portion of it. But my favorite part of this was actually Professor Marius. I loved him and his actor. I thought pretty much from the beginning he was just amazing. Just the fact that he's, you have him where he's basically able to keep up with the Doctor as the Doctor's doing his thought process rambling, which, no one else in the entire history of the show has ever been able to keep up with the Doctor when
Except
he's doing
Victoria.
that. Oh, Victoria couldn't. Zoe might have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I mixed up the two names. Zoe is the one I was thinking of. Victoria is the name I said. So,
Yeah.
Shame.
I meant to say Second Doctor Companion 3. I said Second Doctor Companion 2.
Yeah.
Shame.
Zoe might have, but at the same way, Marius is just taking that absolutely in stride. It's just like, yeah, and then what about yada yada? And it's, they go back and forth, and he gets some of the best lines in the show. Marius does. Matt used one of my favorite ones. Oh, I hope he's TARDIS trained. I'm like, oh my god, you actually went there. I just love the character. I really wish he could have shown up in a later episode, or in like Big Finish or something. Alas, the actor who played him is no longer with us, having died in 2004.
Oh.
So that's a little sad.
It would have been nice to bring him back and explain away, like maybe having him make Mark II K9 for the Doctor. Since we don't know where the Doctor came up with Mark II.
He pushes it out in a box at the end of the invasion. It's assumed the Doctor makes them.
It's assumed that he started making them, yes, but we're not guaranteed on that.
It's like he took a look at the original one and just said, okay, let's see how I can improve on this. And then
learn technology. Let's go.
They completely failed with Mark II as that one kept breaking down.
Unless he found a female K9 in between episodes and,
No, Bill. No.
When two K9s meet each other and love each other very, very much.
Like each other very much.
Okay.
They push out those little suction cups.
God damn it, Matt! I will be hurting you now.
Gotta catch me.
I know more or less where you live. Okay, so what we disliked about the serial, and Tim.
Well, if it is a nitpick, I thought the fuzz around the eyes was kind of cheesy.
Okay, unfortunately that was mine as well. Yeah,
it kind of ruined the title to me. When your enemy is very visible.
Well, when the invisible enemy, I think they were referring to the nucleus, which wasn't invisible until the fourth, which wasn't visible until the fourth act.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like he looks like a giant crawdad. So why are they growing like fish scales and hairy eyebrows?
Why are they trying to turn into the gray version of the Lorax?
Yeah. I kind of thought the makeup guy they didn't kind of go where they should have with that. I would have preferred maybe like little glowy veins or something to indicate they were taken over, but nope.
Which they've done actually before at this point, haven't they?
I thought so, yeah.
Glowy veins. I'm trying to remember.
God,
was that third Doctor or was that early fourth? I can't remember.
Early fourth when Sarah was bitten by a cybermat, I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah, they did it once there, but I think they've also did it in bigger scale too before. So yeah, they could have done that easily and would have been more effective.
Yeah. Okay, Matt, how about you? What did you dislike about the episode overall?
What I disliked about the episode overall,
or the serial, I should say.
There's actually some plot holes in this, I think.
A few.
Like, why did they need to go back to Titan?
Because that was set up as the spawning pool.
I suppose. But
and apparently the eggs were about to come. because that's why he's sitting there in the plane in the ship on the way over, going, "Hurry, hurry!"
Yeah, and also the wasted time with the silly suit in the spaceship, just wiggling there, shouting "hurry" all the time. That had been a real pain to work around that monster.
Mm.
Looked like a giant crawdad. Honest to God. Erin said she looked at that thing and it made her hungry.
I don't know if we can find a big enough pan and enough butter.
Nope, no, not a pan, not a pan. You want a big kettle of water.
Or kettle, yeah, big enough kettle.
Yeah, a big kettle of water and some chili powder and
boil
Cajun
it in some
seasoning.
boil it in some olive oil.
No,
I guess
I'm
that's
with the chili powder
fine.
idea.
Yeah, you want a big kettle of water because you want to boil your crawdad, and you want some chili powder and some cayenne pepper and some Cajun seasoning, and just bring it all in there. Woo-ah!
There was a sauce they were served in a few places in Spain, which was basically olive oil with garlic and some other seasonings.
Sorry, when I think of crawdads, I think of Cajun. I think
Southern,
I'm making
yeah.
gumbo. I think I'm making gumbo. I guarantee. Yep. All right. So, Bill, how about you? What did you dislike about the episode?
Mine's been mentioned, but nobody's actually taken it as their point. So I'm going to go with the giant crawfish in the room.
Because he is delicious.
Literally, in this case.
Yeah.
It was just, I couldn't take him seriously once he showed up on screen. It was just like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
You notice that he couldn't move anywhere on his own either? The poor guy in the suit was trapped standing still, and they had to drag him.
Yep. He could wave his arms.
So
I
at
can
least
wave my
they
arms, they
thankfully
kind of bob
wrote-
my head like I'm talking.
Of course, at
Whoops.
least they were smart enough to add in like a line of dialogue where it's like, "Help me get into the thing."
Yeah, it wasn't the most mobile suit. You get the feeling that they had to to make that at the last second.
That was probably their the last second costume, yeah, and they're just like, oh dear.
No, I'm trying to remember which either movie, like comedy, parody, or sketch or something that I've seen where someone was talking to somebody in a pilot suit, and they're like, "No wonder you're such terrible pilots. You can't see side to side or move your head in this helmet."
I don't remember.
That perfectly describes that.
I would assume it would probably be something like Stormtroopers.
Actually,
Yeah.
that would have
like that.
that would have actually made a great bump, Matt.
Hmm.
Is you got him in the suit and you cut to that scene in A Christmas Story with the kid all wrapped up in the winter outfit going, "I can't put my arms down."
Yep, there's the bump we didn't think about.
Nope, I didn't think about this until now.
Yeah. That keeps happening lately, it seems.
But yeah,
Still, the opening I made where this would have been the one and only chance to do it. I don't know if we'd ever have another chance on that one.
all right, Thomas, how about you?
I'd say Bill technically took mine. But I think there might be something else.
Your original one was the crawdad in the room?
Yeah. I guess like it's both like a positive and a negative, so I'll just go with it because it's like it's kind of nitpicky, but some of the way Leela's handled in this, like some of it's great, and probably would have been like both a positive and a negative thing that I've mentioned because like, she ends up being really integral to the plot. But at the same time, they're always like dismissing her a lot as well.
Oh, yeah,
So
I
it's like,
agree
what
with
the
that.
hell?
Well, you think about this. You think about a savage barbarian in like the 30-odd century. What did they
What,
actually give a time that this happened?
Like
There's another episode which is a joke where the 10th Doctor names a year and mentions that K9 was cutting age at that time, but I don't know if that was serious or not.
I think they're I think he mentions they're in the years the 5000s or
Year
something.
5000,
That
yeah.
sounds right.
Yeah, something
Titan
like
Bates, Biel Foundation 5000.
This was cutting edge in the year 5000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was. Actually, we'll be reviewing that episode in a couple of weeks. Because that's school reunion.
Mm-hmm.
All right. An episode, by the way, I've been waiting for us to review. So, all right, what I really disliked about this, I wasn't as hot on the special effects as Tim was. I mean, the ship flying through space I can deal with because that's 1970s British model work. But I really wasn't fond of the lightning bolt special effect because you never watched this. It never really hit the person.
They hit the person, but it looked like the same effect every time. And some of the laser beams, though, didn't look like they hit anybody.
Yeah.
It was just kind of a little hinky, and it was just like, I'm not really buying this.
There's a reason why a lot of the DVDs do a digital update for them.
Yes, I really wish I had the DVD release on this one so I could watch the digital update.
I guess while we're mentioning special effects, kind of failings or something, the behind the scenes thing actually mentions that when they K9 takes out that part of that wall to make a barrier with, apparently they'd done that once, and you couldn't see where
you could see where it fell off the first time, yeah.
Yeah, and so when they set it up to do it a second take, even though it worked perfectly fine the first time, they didn't have enough time to cover it up.
Yeah, you could see the
and
break.
they still did use the retake anyways, even though it looks bad.
Yeah.
Well, I think somebody might have flubbed a line or something on the original. Remember, they weren't as good as creatively re-editing then as they are now, where you can take half a scene. I mean, to notice the difference, watch, it's on the internet, the 12th Doctor's Goodbye, you can tell was actually shot 3-4 different times. And the only way I can tell is because occasionally his arm will be in a different position. But you realize that they're basically taking.
And I think there was a lot of cuts in that episode, in that scene.
Yeah, 3-4 different takes that they're just kind of they're cutting it differently, and they didn't do that back in the 70s because they had to make all these cuts on videotape, and that's a lot harder to do. Where they can re-edit these digitally now.
Yeah, it's not like putting it into Premiere or Vegas.
Yep. Or whatever professional version of said programs they use now. Anyway, so those were my issues. So now we move on to favorite scenes. And Tim, you're first.
Scenes. I just love the short mini scenes with between Leela and K9. It's can you explain blah 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 blah? Can you explain simply negative?
That was great.
Yeah.
Sigh, roll eyes.
Or I also love that scene. K9, do I really look like that? Affirmative.
Yeah, then you watch as Louise Jameson kind of bites her lip and looks, really self-conscious.
I think Sarah Jane's version of K9 managed to learned how to explain things simply over time.
I think that's what K9 learned, period, over time.
Because I think eventually it was able to explain things to the children.
Maybe. I don't know. I think this K9 may have gotten the hand of it eventually. Remember, this version was originally created for a genius. So...
Yeah, so it could be very well that the Doctor gradually added more programming to K9 to do layman's terms.
Yeah,
right.
And K9 Mark II didn't really need it because it's all like Romana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
So
this
can
one,
you explain simply enough for Romana? Yes, by making it more complicated.
yeah. Whereas here you had Leela, and Leela, of course, being a savage, really needed to talk it down. Okay, so Matt, how about you? What was your favorite scene?
Favorite scene. There's a ton of good ones. I'm just trying to think of which one I want to go with right now. I think I'll go with the one scene that I always seem to remember, is even though there's the hinky effect in it, is the whole, okay, Leela leading K9 back to the hall, and we gotta defend the door, so could you help me make a barricade or something, K9? Zap, thud. Oh, thank you. Affirmative. Wag.
I do love the fact that Leela is tactically smart. So they're letting her set up the defense, and she's doing a decent job. K9 then reminds her about the service lift, and it's like, oh yes, you take out the service lift, and It's...
And I'll stay here and watch God for a few minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I actually enjoyed that she kind of had that moment in the sun in this. All right. Bill, how about you?
This is favorite scene.
Yes.
I'm going to go with Into the Doctor, the journey through the brain and such. I thought that was interesting.
The Doctor's fantastic voyage.
Yes.
The Doctor's
you do realize that's what they ripped off.
Although there was an upsetting lack of lasagna. Of course, Leela wouldn't have known what lasagna was.
I'm actually trying to get that reference.
Into the Dalek.
Oh, Into the Dalek. Okay.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, no. You see, when I'm sitting here, I was thinking this. You realize that basically they were just ripping off Isaac Asimov's Fantastic Voyage, right? Only without using a sub, because that would have cost too much money.
Well, I also had to reference the fact that they would then rip it off again 40 years later.
Not to mention they'd actually made that movie, I think, about a couple of years before this with Donald Pleasance.
Yep, that's the movie I'm thinking of, because basically Isaac Asimov wrote the novelization of it. It was one of those things like 2001 where they basically wrote the book and the movie at the same time.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it's only I think Asimov had a lot more in the production than Clark did. Anyway, either way, I know when he wrote Fantastic Voyage 2, that was basically addressing issues he had with Fantastic Voyage and what they cut, etc. Anyway, I am digressing. Thomas.
Thankfully, no one took mine.
Yay!
Mine is the Doctor bolts into the TARDIS, takes off. Leela shouts out for him, so he rematerializes, lets her get on, and then leaves again.
Why didn't you wait for us, Pulse K9 in?
It was a good scene. I remember I was laughing at that one. All right, and me, I think my favorite is when Professor Marius is introducing K9 to Leela. Yes, it's my portable computer. It knows everything I do. Don't you? Affirmative.
And more.
And more, master. And it's something
Raises
I think
an eyebrow.
would later do to the Doctor, but still, it's kind of great to hear that.
He
Just
gets
the K9.
significantly snarkier with the Doctor. The Doctor is not a good influence on him.
I think the Doctor programs him that way deliberately. Okay, so now I have a robot dog. What do? I know. I'll add some snark. Why? Because it's good for me.
Snark and some layman's terms in case my other companions get confused. There.
I guess that entire scene is generally kind of funny because, like, he walks through the door, gets a gun pointed at him, he's just like, "Oh, put that away."
All right, so least favorite scene, and Tim, you're up first.
There was really nothing spectacular about the scene where the Doctor is saying, "That was a great idea I had." Leela says, "That was my idea. Then you should be happy." I am happy.
I think.
Okay.
I actually like that scene.
Mm.
Screw you, Tim. I liked that scene.
Whoa. I'm going to sit in my corner and think about what I've done.
Matt, how about you?
Least favorite scene? The one where the crawdad is leering over the Doctor, and you can tell that Tom Baker is trying his best not to get super annoyed at this thing, constantly waving its little antennae all over him. And it's just the most pathetic, evil, gloating monster ever. Because they had to pick him up and carry him over to the Doctor. They had to pick him up and carry him down the hallway.
Now,
It's
if
just,
this had happened a few seasons later, when Tom Baker was getting increasingly fed up, yeah, he probably would have gotten really snappish.
Yeah, he probably would have started snapping and told them to push the guy back a foot. For crying out loud, yeah.
I mean, there is the Tom Baker that once said to K9, "Yeah, you never fucking know the answer when it's important."
In a blooper, yes.
Yes, well, yeah, I mean, that happened on set. So they were filming, and he just got snappish and did that, so. Either that or Tom Baker was trying very hard not to laugh his ass off, which is the other possibility.
It's one of the two. He even keeps his eyes closed. That's just how, like, he needs to...
If I look at it, I will laugh. If I look at it, I will laugh.
It's either the things prodding him, annoying him, or the fact that he has looked at it, it couldn't stop laughing, and now has to keep his eyes closed and imagine something more threatening in order to keep from cackling.
Because, the thing is, you could see what Paul McGann's Doctor would have done in this particular situation looking at this. It's like, oh my, and I'm being attacked by a giant crawdad. Anybody got some butter? And some garlic,
We need a big kettle, really big.
Because, McGann's great was his Doctor talent was snark.
Yeah, his Doctor became more snarky.
And we need more Doctors that will just absolutely just deadpan snark like that, because yeah, that's a good talent. Okay, so who are we up to for least favorite scene?
That was me.
So, Bill.
So this is not unique to this serial, but it still bothered me, and it kind of bothers me every time it comes up, where I forget the context of the scene, but basically the Doctor and Leela are disagreeing about something, or he's just annoyed at her, and he pulls the, "Well, you're a savage," and I'm just sitting there like, you do realize that that's not a value neutral term. Like, that's basically, that's a way to say that she's less than human and not worthy to be traveling with you. And the fact that he why, would you talk to your companion that way? It just pisses me off every time. And especially in that context where he said it in anger, and it was just like,
early on, I can see it. Because remember the fact that Leela didn't choose, or the Doctor didn't choose Leela as a companion.
Mm-hmm.
She pretty much hijacked herself onto the TARDIS.
Even still, any other Doctor, the fact that she, it's not like, she's like, she's not like an actual villain. He would normally stop and at the very least not use dehumanizing language. Like, he might be bitter and say shit, but he wouldn't try to make it like she's less than human.
Oh, I don't know.
Which is what the term savage is.
He's referred to humans as stupid apes on a few occasions.
Mm-hmm. More than a few occasions.
Especially during the 9th Doctor era.
Matter of fact, actually, in this episode, he referred to them as a disease at one point in the opening. Because he pointed out there's always the flaw that too many humans around in one spot equals to lots of violence and taking over.
I actually think the context of what Bill's talking about was when they were in his head, and she was like wondering what all this stuff in his head was, and he was going on about, oh, this is what makes my brain superior to yours, and stuff, and then like, what would you know about brains anyway, or like whatever.
He had a few moments like that, but there's also a few moments where he did just flat out call her savage, I think, before he got infected or just shortly after. Oh, my nose tonight. Apparently I'm picking up every particle of dust tonight.
All right, so Thomas, your least favorite scene?
I'm pretty much gonna have to go with the moment where Leela, like, sort of does this very... You can't even really call it a jump so much as she just kind of awkwardly falls onto a guy who awkwardly falls over, and then she does the lightest, clearly not stabbing at all in the neck thing. And it's just like, you couldn't rehearse that a few more times, guys. It looks so terrible.
They probably ran out of rehearsal and just had to film it.
Yeah, because, like, even the stab, it's like, obviously she can't, like, full-on stab or anything, even though it's a rubber knife, but it was just, like, it's, like, not even a stab, it's just, like, gently poking him with something on the edge of his neck, and it's just like, really?
Yeah, that was a little haphazard. There was a couple times where some of the combat got a little haphazard. It's either the fact that they lacked the foresight to actually try these things out before they did them, or the fact that the effects were just not working at times.
All right. So now we're up to my least favorite scene. Guys have chosen many of mine. Trying to think if I have any left. I think I'm just going to pass because I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Yeah.
All right. So we are up to our final thoughts. Tim?
Final thoughts. This episode was a great introduction to a classic character. Good dynamic between Leela and the Doctor. Stellar performance by Professor Marius. And I unironically and unsarcastically did enjoy the special effects. This was one of the better visual episodes from the classic era of Doctor Who, I believe.
Did you see the DVD revision or the original? I'm wondering.
I'm not sure. I think I might have been the original.
I know the version I watched was the original because it looked exactly the same as it did when I first saw it, in the 80s.
Was there a glow effect on the lightning, Tim?
There was no glow effect in the lightning. I don't recall.
Okay, so no, he saw the original.
All right, are you done, Tim?
I'm done.
Okay, Matt?
There's a couple of effects here and there that are flawed. There's a couple of scenes that they should have redone or re-edited out. But faults like that happen because, to be honest, they just really weren't giving the show enough time to actually do itself properly. But beyond that, the story for the most part was pretty solid. The characterizations were pretty nice. Of course, the Doctor is still being snippish with Leela because she kind of forced herself on him.
You might want to reword that, Matt.
She did, but there's not much way. She forced herself into the TARDIS.
Better.
There's not many ways you can phrase it, Randy.
I know, but that wasn't what you wanted to use.
Anyways, there's side characters that were done pretty well. The K9, despite the little bit of the chaos of trying to get the thing to work right, and the fact that the robot made a lot of noise, was still otherwise a pretty good character right out of the gate. The only major flaw seems to be come out of the monsters themselves, which were not that well executed on screen. Otherwise, when it comes to visual effects, in particular, the British models actually were better than normal in this one, and made up for some of the lack. And that's about it.
All right, Bill?
I like the story. I think I like it mostly on paper, mostly on the script stage, because I do think certain visual things kill a lot of the tension, particularly related to the villains of the piece. And of course, it introduces K9, who isn't quite as funny as he would be down the line, but the start of the character is already there. He's already, a good character to have on screen. And overall, I would say it's an enjoyable episode.
All right. Thomas?
Yeah, like issues aside, I actually really enjoyed this. I had no context, I think, going into this other than it being like the introduction of K9 and
Same.
yeah, like I just I'm kind of glad, and yeah, like the monster ultimately is really silly and whatever, but I can forgive a lot of stuff if the story is still entertaining, and it was. So, yeah.
All right. Anything else?
Not that I can think of, no.
Okay. So this is an episode I do remember from the 80s, and I do love it, but looking at it at a critical eye, special effects are a bit cheesy, but the model effects are good. The cosmetic effects are a bit painful, but the acting is wonderful. And it's very well written with only a couple of minor question marks on it. And it's kind of obvious it's kind of their take on Isaac Asimov's Fantastic Voyage, but they do it differently enough that it's not a full-on copy. So I think it's enjoyable, but it's by all means not perfect. All right, so now we go to ratings. And Tim, you are first.
All right, I will give this a 4 out of 5.
4.0. All right, Matt.
I'm actually right there, Tim. 4.0.
4.0. Bill.
Continue the trend. 4.0.
Thomas.
Wow, for some reason I thought I was going to be the odd one out, but yeah, 4.0.
That's why you were laughing.
Dear God, this is the third week in a row where we've all given it identical ratings.
Did Aaron give it or no?
Mind you, I would have given it about
we would have been reading it the whole time.
4.2, but that still goes down to a 4.0. Which, of course, with 5 of us giving it a 4.0, averages out to 4.0.
See, with some of your comments before we watched it, I thought you were going to be mad at us and give it like a 4.5 or 5.
I love it, but it's not without its flaws.
Fair.
Again, the crawdad.
The giant freaking crawdad is one of them.
Waving all 4 arms at you. Hello.
The hairy hands.
The giant, the hairy eyes is one other. And just a couple of cheesy visual effects that just kind of.
I just have to think the doctor had hairy palms.
Oh my. And Leela forced herself on him, huh? Oh, my. Anyway, with a 4.0, we will sort. And with the sort, we get kind of middly of the road here. The Invisible Enemy comes in at number 104 out of 253, still in the top half.
Well, into the top half, yeah. Not deep into it, but it's definitely in there.
Mm-hmm. It is on par with Rose, which actually suffers much from the same problems. Planet of the Spiders, Light at the End, Hunters of Earth, co-owner of A Lonely Heart / Bravest Heart, Castrovalva, Stage Fright, The Great White Hurricane, Inferno, which we did recently, Torchwood Everything Changes, Terminus, Heaven Sent, Trial of the Valiard, Vengeance on Varos, The Runaway Bride, Attack of the Cybermen, and A Good Man Goes to War. As you can tell, we're into our large section here. It is better than Knock Knock, The Deadly Assassin, which we also did recently, Brain of Morbius, Colony in Space, Warriors of Gate, Revenge of the Slovene, Into the Dalek, Technophobia at all, and not as good as Oxygen, The Daemons, The Pilot, The Brink of Death, Closing Time, The Girl Who Died, Death to the Daleks, etc. So there you go.
Warriors of Gate. You're a little too far with the X of Y thing there.
I'm sorry. I was actually. What did I say? Warriors of Gate.
It was not the last category. The category before.
Okay, probably because I'm looking at a whole bunch of stuff. Yes.
Warriors of Gate.
Hey.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, I know everything in Doctor Who is X of Y, but not that everything.
Well, eventually your brain just starts putting of everything on there. Yes. Anyway, number 104 out of how many did I say again? 253. That's all we have to say about The Invisible Enemy. Bill?
All right. If you enjoy listening to us, don't forget to follow us on twitch.tv/unearthlypodcast and at an Unearthly Podcast on YouTube, which is now up to date with all of our episodes, although we do need to update some title cards. You can also follow us at facebook.com/unearthlypodcast and twitter.com/unearthlypod. And if you want to support us, you can head on over to patreon.com/unearthlypodcast.
All right. Next week, we go forth to Leela's. No, we did that. How about Romana's? Nope, did that too. Adric? Nope. Nope. Teganist? Nope. 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 Did that. Turlo did that too. Nope.
Damn.
Mel? Nope. Okay. Let's say goodbye to Mel then, and hello to Ace in Dragonfire. Written by Ian Briggs and starring Sylvester McCoy as the Doctor, Bonnie Langford as Mel, and introducing Sophie Aldred as Ace.
Yay.
So we go from 1977 to 1987. Because we've done everything in the middle. So see you next week.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
See you then.
Bye-bye. Fare thee well.